It would be great to sort of go back and maybe even just reinvent, rethink, bring it back to television in some way, maybe take advantage of the fact that audiences are now accustomed to serial storytelling. They're used to narratives that will stretch over a season, stretch over the length of a series as a whole. I think they should probably consider bringing it down to 10 to 13 episode seasons, do it in more of a premium format, maybe look at a premium network like Showtime, or something like that, where they maybe have slightly larger budgets and a little bit more creative freedom. But generally, just for the sake of being able to explore more complex ideas over a longer form of storytelling, definitely has to come back to television.
I think on top of maybe doing it something like Showtime, what about Netflix?
Yeah.
All 6 shows. Yes, once again, I am including the animated series. Some of those episodes when they Dan find live action shows. But yeah, listen, I've got all the Blu-rays for the original show, the Next Gen. I got all the other DVDs for all the other shows. But when I sit down and I watch Star Trek, I put on Netflix. It's right there. It's right there.
Is this something CBS would do or could do legally? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hear
I'm asking, I don't know.
very, very crazy rumors. But it's been discussed to an extent. I can't say anything more than that because I don't know anything more than that. But Vic, what do you think? Where does Star Trek need to go? Or would you like to see it?
I agree.
You're already doing it! You're already duh!
I'm just fulfilling a childhood dream. I don't expect anything to ever come of it, but
But a lot
very grateful. If you haven't checked it out, please consider yourselves personally invited to check out Star Trek Continues.
It's an award winner. You won an award.
Our desire is to continue to fight our mission, to pick it up right where it left off, at the end of Turnabout Intruder, and carry it through. And in fact, our last few episodes will probably create a situation where Kirk gets promoted to Admiral, and Spock decides to return to Vulcan and pursue the Colonnade, and McCoy decides he wants to leave the service and grow a beard and drink mint juleps. And we would leave the story where the motion picture picked up. But I would love to see it back on television. My only concern would be, I loved the original series stories, and I don't think people write a lot like that anymore. And I mean, television's not like that much anymore. And I understand that I don't represent the masses. And you broadcast, you make shows for the masses. But for me, the thing, like we talked about, what made Star Trek so special, I would hope that if it does come back to television, that the people that were at the helm, pardon the pun, would want to carry on in the same quality of stories, the same depth of stories that made the show so endearing in the first place.
Listen, when you talk about stories, yeah, again, we talked a lot about the characters, and we talked about how they were fully realized that you really only get a chance to do that when you're doing it outside of TV, developing, involving. But just looking back, just because it is the 50th anniversary of the original series, the episodes that endured the most were the allegories to the times, and they were subtle. Not the more overt ones, like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield or A Private Little War, which are very obvious. But it took me decades to realize that This Side of Paradise was an allegory for the hippie movement. I never got that. I didn't get that the spores were drugs and that the colonists on Omicron 3 were hippies. It took me, I didn't realize that until like a year ago. But that's like one of those like aha moments that a show that has been on since 1966 is still showing bearing its fruits. And that's the kind of writing that I think is really crucial to Star Trek, something that has been missing in these last 2 films. And really, none of the best Star Trek movies have been like that. So I think if they're going to bring that into the next movie, that Roberto Orci is directing. Roberto Orci, who has never directed anything, not even episodic TV. How do you feel about where the next Star Trek movie is going, with Roberto Orci directing, and with the news that Lee Shatner is going to be in the film? What do you have to say? What do you answer? So you all know the story about what's going to happen in Star Trek 2009, right? The scene that they were going to shoot with Shatner, but he didn't want to just do a cameo. At the end of the episode, when Spock and Spock are talking, the older Spock, we call it what, Spock Prime? Spock Prime shows Dr. Quinto Spock a birthday message from Kirk to Spock Prime, and it's Shatner saying, like, I'm sorry I won't be able to wish you a happy birthday, but you know, you've been such a great friend to me. It's supposed to be this really, really moving scene, and you can find the dialogue online. But Shatner held it out because he didn't want to just do a cameo. Meanwhile, so now he's going to come back for Star Trek that is being released on the 50th anniversary of when the show premiered. So, you got to get into that guy. He knows what he's doing. Go.
As a director, I don't know how Bob Orsi's going to do because he hasn't directed anything. However, I have to believe that the machine behind him to make the film work in terms of the physical production. The guy is such a fan of the original series. And he's always been sort of curtailed during making these two movies by others who are saying, well, that's too Star Trek, that's too Star Trek. Bring it down to something we're mainstreaming, you know. My feeling is that he's going to embrace much more of the original Star Trek than even the other. As much as I like the first two films, I think much more than those films did. And as far as Shatner possibly coming back, I mean, there's nothing I would love more than to see William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy hopefully together again for the 50th anniversary. But I also have a concern for these films that they're still relying too much on the original series in the sense that if you're going to be in a reimagining of Star Trek and going forward, then go forward. Don't bring Khan back. Don't keep bringing Spock back. Do your own thing and establish Star Trek for this generation.
I agree that we need to establish Star Trek for this generation. One of the great things about the show is that people of all, so cheesy, but all ages love it. I mean, there are grandparents that watched the show when they were younger, young, and there are kids that are named after the characters. It's so cool. Hi, Jessica. Nice to meet you. No, really, I don't know, that might be Chinese, but I think that if I love the original series characters, and they started all of this, and I guess the purist in me wants to say they're using Shatner, who I love, and I think he's come a long way in his understanding of fandom and all that stuff. I have a lot of respect for him now. I think they should use George, because he was such an incredible diversity and bravery, and Michelle, obviously. What an amazing human being she is, and the character that did so much. And then you go and and Walter, and obviously Leonard. So where do you draw the line? I mean, these guys are all, I don't know, essential. I'm good at this. I'm sorry. I just think it would be really cool to keep what the original series had and stood for. I almost just like to see that.
I'm certainly not going to second guess what Roberto Orsi might do 3 years from now or 2 years from now. It all comes down to execution. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you execute it badly, it's not going to work. You could have a so-so idea, but if you execute it brilliantly, you raise it to the level of art. So I'm going to withhold judgment until I actually see what he does. I'm all for it. If he wants to bring Shatner in and Shatner wants to be part of it, I think it's a great way to tie history together. I do agree that maybe they have relied a little bit heavily on fan service and nostalgia. I think they've been riding too much on nostalgia for the first couple of movies. I agree that they should carve out their own niche, establish their own identity. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm hoping Roberto Orsi will do that. I'm hoping he'll have the artistic courage to do it and the freedom to do it. And if he does, then I will applaud him and I will love that movie.
Dick?
The thing that I love the most about the new movies is that they introduced Star Trek to a new generation of people.
Yes.
And you know what I love the most? What I love the most is that it encouraged people to go back and watch the original series. That literally seeing the new movies made them go, I wonder where this all came from.
It was a game.
And they literally, right. Like the source. And, But, you know, and I do a lot of voice work for animated shows and video games, and one of my favorite things is for a 13, 15-year-old fan to come up and say, my dad made me watch the original series with him, and I love it. To see the way that parents are passing on their lifelong love for the original series is wonderful, and younger kids are still enjoying the original series 45, 50 years later. I don't know what to expect from these movies, because let's be fair, they're making them to make money, right? I mean, that's not a bad thing, but let's just call it like it is. No, of course, but my point is they're making them for a broad audience to have as much appeal as possible. So invariably, hardcore Star Trek fans are probably going to find fault and feel like it doesn't meet up to their expectations. But these movies are not being made for the hardcore Star Trek. They're not being made for the 2%. They're being made for a large audience. And whatever gets people to look back and enjoy what has already been made, I applaud that. And I'm glad to hear that Bob Orsi is a Star Trek fan. I've heard that JJ is not.
He self-admitted was not.
There you go. But he loves Star Wars, so those movies will probably be really good. So I'm glad to hear that Bob Orsi, regardless of his experience, I'm glad to hear that at least he has a love for the original series, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Chase.
Oh, I just wanted to say real fast, because I know our time is almost up. I'm starting, one of the things I love about Trek is that it does segue into real life. It's not just a television show. There's so many things that you guys do that you really, truly care about the world. And I'm putting together an initiative called Star Trek IRL. Of course, we have TOS, TNG, DS9, EOY, and ENT. And I think it's time for Star Trek in real life, where we take these stories and we do things that matter in the real world, because it has such an incredible power in our fan base. And I know that you guys love these stories because you care about the world. So I would love to just keep you guys posted. There's an article on StarTrek.com that I wrote about it with a man who has cerebral palsy. We're going to do some work. We brought him, a fan effort brought him to the Vegas convention. We're going to do some more stuff for people who need us. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there and follow us on Twitter. If you want to follow us on Twitter handles or whatever. Please love to keep you posted on it.
For the book, we need your help too.
Yeah, this is really self-serving now after that one. But, as Scott mentioned at the beginning, I'm co-writing with Marvel a book called 50-Year Mission, which is a complete oral history of Star Trek. And because of the format, I'd like to put it out there. If anybody's life has been impacted by Star Trek in some way or another, and you'd like to submit it to us, we would love the possibility of printing some of those in the book as part of the oral history, because we do want to see how Star Trek impacted our regular people. So if you do want to send something, please send it to 50yearmission@gmail.com. And 50 is spelled out, it's not a number. And we'd love to hear from you.
All right, turn around. Doesn't Scott look like Chris Pine? You got your competition there, man. I mean, that as a compliment.
He wins.
Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping us launch the 50th anniversary of Star Trek right here in this